chairs in front that are still empty, so please don't feel like you're interrupting me if you'd like to come closer and huddle up. That would be fantastic. So it's good to be back in Canada. I've had the opportunity to come to Canada many times with Oceana, join their expeditions, advocate with members of Parliament and ministers for the rebuilding of Canada's oceans. Now, as you heard, this work goes back a long time. When I was 7 years old, my grandfather introduced me to the oceans by teaching me to dive in the Mediterranean. And it was a life-changing experience. I'm sure many of you have had a similar life-changing experience when you met the oceans for the first time. For me, I was wearing a mask that was too big for my face. I was wearing red rubber suspenders. I was holding a small oxygen tank like that. And flippers that had been sized to fit my small feet. Now, I was tall, but gangly. So all of this equipment sort of hung off my shoulders and at weird angles, and it was not terribly comfortable. And as I shuffled up to the side of the boat, I looked down into this dark water and I got really afraid because it was unknown to me. I had been swimming since I was 6 months old, and the water felt like home, the ocean. That was big and kind of scary. And as I was having these thoughts about maybe this whole thing is a really bad idea, my grandfather came up next to me and patted me on the back and pushed me in. So there I was, treading water and thinking about how to take my first breath, because this regulator, which is really big, didn't feel like it was going to do the job. So I took a first tentative breath and it seemed to work. And I took another breath, then it worked, another one. And then filled with confidence, I started swimming down because there was so much to explore, so much to see, and I could breathe underwater. The most amazing feeling. So I go down, and when I look up, I see this school of small silver fish swimming towards me. And they came closer and closer. And they were swimming in unison, and the sun was coming through the surface and glinting off their little bodies. It looked like silver fireworks. And they came and they surrounded me. And for a moment I could reach out and they'd swim away. And I'd pull my hand back and they'd come closer. And then they were gone. But they left me with this impression of a new world that was so extraordinary, endless in the opportunity it gave us to explore and experience a whole new world. And I understood why my grandfather had been so passionate about this since the day he invented scuba diving and did this for the first time. But what I didn't realize when I was 7 years old in the early 80s was that the oceans were about to start a downward spiral because of new technologies and fishing gear and exploding demographics that would make them unrecognizable to me today. My grandfather started diving in the 50s, back when the oceans were still abundant, diverse, where every time he dove in the water, there were extraordinary things to see. 300-400-pound Jewfish in the Mediterranean that don't exist anymore. And of course, in the 1950s, it was right after the Second World War, nobody knew what was there. And so he had this moment in time when he could see things that were about to disappear. He was the last one to see these things the way he did. And thank goodness he recorded it and was able to share it with people and inspire them awe and wonder for our oceans that for many people changed the course of their life and directed them down a whole different path. When my father came of age on expedition, he started to see things in the oceans. In the 60s, he saw changes that the earlier generation maybe hadn't noticed. He saw that degradation was accelerating, that some of the places that he had loved as a child were starting to disappear. That was the first time that anybody had experienced that, because nature has always been so abundant. My father's generation was the first one to sound the alarm, to say, whoa, guys, we need to take care of what we have. We need to protect what we have. It's precious. It supports our life as we know it. It provides us with health and happiness and prosperity. We need to protect this. And so the conservation ethic was born, and it inspired so many of the efforts that have won battles in this effort to protect our natural environment and our oceans. But I think that there's a fundamental flaw in that conservation ethic, which is that while many of us are inspired by it and dedicate our lives to it, it hasn't grabbed everybody. There are a lot of people for whom the idea of protecting what you have so you don't lose it isn't engaging. Because we have it, and what am I going to do to destroy it? What impact do I have? I'm just going to keep doing what I do, and everything will be all right. And so here we are today, and I think that this time calls for a new approach, an approach that isn't about protecting what we have before it's gone, because too much of it is already gone, and because protecting what's left is fundamentally insufficient. It's time for us to talk about how we rebuild, how we restore the abundance that's been lost. And I hope that that message, that we've lost too much, but that we can work together to bring it back, is perhaps the message that will engage more people. Because it's hopeful, and it's positive, and it's important. It feels urgent, because it is. But there's something that we need to be clear about. Well, going out and rebuilding the oceans isn't going to take us back in time. It's not going to take us back to the 1950s, to the oceans that my grandfather revealed to us, that inspired awe and wonder. The oceans will be fundamentally different. The plastic issue, the changes in fish populations, the things that have been lost but can't come back, aren't going to come back. But rebuilding our oceans is still critically important. Rebuilding our fish stocks, regenerating our coral reefs, replanting our mangroves and our seagrass beds, turning off the single-use plastic tap, not just recycling, turning it off. These are the things that we must aspire to if we want to restore the resources that do bring that health, happiness, and prosperity to our communities. When I became a mother 7 years ago, I thought about what I was going to be able to tell my daughter, and later my son. If I was going to be able to bring them to the places that I had known as a child, that had shaped my understanding of the environment, that had taught me so much about the oceans. And I realized that I wasn't going to be able to take them to the places that I knew as a child because those places are gone. So what was the story that I was going to tell my children about what they could look forward to? We've all heard the statistic that by 2050 there'll be more plastic in the ocean than fish. By 2050, my children will be my age. They'll be 40 years old. That's an incredible thing. Because as I tell them the story of their family, my grandfather that explored pristine oceans, my father that started sounding the alarm, am I going to write the obituary for our oceans? Is that my role in this family legacy? Or do we aspire to rebuild? And that is the conversation we have to have. I don't believe that conservation, the ethic that we protect what we have so we don't lose it, will get us there. And I think it's time for all of us to think about how we rebuild, how we restore, how we bring back abundance and diversity, because that's a fundamentally different approach. So the future is an extension of what we choose to do today. future is an extension of what we choose to do today. And today we are having incredibly important conversations. Canada is doing wonderful things. So let's talk about that for a minute. Canada, here, at the G7. What conversation are we having? And how can we help Canada become a leader on these issues in the future? Well, Canada has already put in place enabling conditions to rebuild oceans here. And that's tremendously exciting for me to watch that happen. Canada's committed to more than $200 million over 5 years in oceans and fisheries scientists, hiring 125 scientists, new scientists and support staff to explore, to do research, and to figure out how to rebuild Canadian oceans. Canada made key information public on health of stock, something that Oceana and others have been advocating for. That's tremendously important. Please don't underestimate the importance of transparency and making information available so that we can all have a conversation about what needs to be done. When that information stays in a box, away from us, then we can't have that kind of conversation. These oceans belong to all of us, and we all need to know what's happening so that we can work together to rebuild them. In 3 years, Canada has gone from having protected less than 1% of its oceans to now around 7% on track to achieve 10% by 2020. That's amazing progress. That's really amazing progress. But it doesn't end there. We need to manage those protected areas. We need to monitor our progress and make sure that they continue to be protected and doing the work that they're supposed to be doing with that protection by rebuilding and restoring that abundance and diversity. We need those marine protected areas. And that is work that we need to do together. Having joined Oceana's expeditions in the West and the East, I've seen firsthand how incredibly productive we can be in this work when we work together. Scientists, government, nonprofits, and Indigenous leaders coming together to explore, to understand, and protect what we have. We're on track, and that's exciting. But it's only exciting if we seize this opportunity to make that commitment last. It's only exciting when we continue to listen to our scientists and allow them to direct how we can serve, how many fish we take, what places we protect. Scientists have to be a leading part of those decisions. And it's only exciting if we continue to be ambitious and bold in making difficult decisions about plastic, about our addiction to single-use plastic, and how far we're willing to go to make sure that they stay out of our oceans. Recycling is not enough. We need to do more. But in order to do more, we need everybody to be part of that. Everybody to make different decisions, to invest differently in new materials, to invest in innovation through our own personal choices, through our support of our politicians, through our support of our nonprofits, and through our purchasing decisions. So my advice to Canada, if I may, is to take advantage of this opportunity. We have lost opportunities in the past. If we had done things differently, when my father's generation started talking about conservation, we wouldn't be talking about a statistic that in a few decades we'll have more plastic than fish in the ocean. We wouldn't be having that conversation because it wouldn't be happening. If we had done things differently on climate change, we wouldn't be having this conversation. We wouldn't be watching our weather change because we would have averted that disaster. But we didn't, and here we are. So the future is an extension of what we do today. What will we do today? And I look forward to hearing the announcements that will be made today. I look forward to the continuing leadership of Minister McKenna and Minister Wilkinson. I look forward to seeing how Canada rises to the challenge of becoming an example that we desperately need in North America on leadership, on oceans, an example for the rest of the world. I hope the G7 will join Canada in making these kinds of commitments and make them seriously. But I also ask that you reflect on what you do in the conversations that you have with each other, in the way you think about our response to these challenges, about how we can restore abundance to our oceans, and that we're able to do that together, because that is how we will make meaningful and lasting change. Thank you.